Good evening, good afternoon, good morning, wherever you are. Welcome to the Facebook Live. It is March the 24th, year 2021. Welcome, everyone. Here we are with our panel. Today, we are joined with Travis, who's a musician and spiritual teacher. I'm going to go through the introductions very quickly so we can get into the conversation. I'm sure everyone is very familiar with the panel. Louise, who's our author and a spiritual teacher, so welcome, Louise. We have Ryan as well, who is a spiritual teacher, does a lot of meditation, offers a lot of meditation classes and a course on enlightenment. So welcome, Ryan. And then we have Kelly, our one and only Qigong teacher on the panel. And we also have Caesar, who is a channel and a spiritual teacher. Good evening, Caesar. And we have Eileen, our incredible Eileen, who keeps us all streamlined. Today, I'll start off with a question from, this is Summer asking, I'm positive everyone has met Summer some way or the other. And the question Summer asks is, and this is an Eckhart Tolle quote, I think. What does he mean by when you are tired of the world, what you're really tired of is the self? When you're tired of the world, what you're really tired of is the self. Travis, since you've been away, did you want to get started? And I'll try and put this on the chat.
Sure, thanks.
Thank you.
The word self can mean two vastly different things. We use it to reference our deepest self, the heart of life, or God, or whatever you want to call it. And we also use that same word to reference our separate sense of self, our identity, a sense of who we are, that sees ourselves in a world where everything else out there isn't us. And so or another way to put it would be the relative self and that is time bound and begins and ends. And then there is the self that is without beginning and without end. And so as we turn our attention in on ourselves and ask who we are, we initiate a process where we eventually come deeper and deeper into a realization that there is only this one self, this one consciousness that is expressing itself in infinite ways, our relative self being one of those ways. When our sense of identity of who we are is entirely bound up in the relative, limited, time-bound sense of self that is with beginning and end, that's where a lot of pain and trouble and hardship and anguish and misery and suffering and pain comes from. We feel incomplete. We feel under threat because something could happen and we wouldn't be who we are anymore. We feel as though maybe if something came along, we could add something to ourselves. Something could come along that would take away and make us less who we are. So it's not a pleasant state to be in the state of that small self, of that limited self alone, to only exist as that. I think when we come into our deeper self and are able to identify with that one self, that one consciousness that is without beginning and without end, and nothing could be added to it that would make it any more whole or complete, and nothing could happen that could take anything away from it and make it any less of what it is. When we're living from that space and we're rooted in that space, then we can enjoy and embrace and play around in that relative sense of self, the limited self, the self that we happen to be for a while, the for now self. So, and the funny thing is, and this is something I've been having some new insights around just from some of the stuff I've been reading lately, is that when we experience the world, everything that we see and taste and touch and feel and hear and think about, all of those things, that which we're seeing it with, but also belongs to the world. That which we're hearing it with, so even the seeing, the hearing, all of it is the world. All of it is that field of existence of relative phenomena. So it's something I'm still getting to know and coming into deeper understanding around. But it seems as though there's some aspect of who we are that is independent of even that which perceives the world. And so, yeah, so, but we can become world weary. And that's when we start to seek that deeper self. And that's not, it's also, that is essentially kind of the same as becoming self-weary or tired of yourself, or like how Eckhart Tolle had said, I can't live with myself like this anymore. And it struck him as odd because he thought it's as if there are two of me who can't live with this self. So it's an interesting discernment and differentiation to make there. As I understand it, it's the most worthy of endeavors to embark upon. So, so grateful to be sharing this journey with all of you.
Thank you, Travis. And when you say relative time-bound self, implying we have a narrative of who we think we are, like we are deriving some kind of historical personality from what our past self was. So that's the relative time-bound self. Perfect. Thank you. Thank you for the insight. Ryan, did you want to quickly give an input? I'm going to give you more time because I know you stay for a shorter time than everybody else. So go ahead.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for doing this again. By the way, I just think it's awesome you do this. Everybody does this every week. It's beautiful. So yeah, tired of the world. You know, the first thing that came to mind is actually I one day realized I was only really tired of the human world. The rest of the world is quite beautiful and sane. The plants, the animals, the actual earth, it's the actual world is beautiful. And I don't know if you could really get tired of that, but it's the human layer of the drama and the chaos and the corruption and the insanity that I think is usually being referred to when being tired of it, like being tired of the drama. And it's just one interesting thing there, because like it's like animals. I don't know if animals get tired of the world. Like the cats and dogs, I think they're quite content with the world, but they also don't really recognize all the other crazy stuff going on. They don't understand what the news is when the news pops up. They're not thinking about everything. And so that's where I think it kind of like comes back to as well with getting tired. You know, really it's being tired with ourselves. It's like, it's being, for me, it really translates to being tired with the mental chatter. With, you know, and with this, like how the mind just circulates the dramas and circulates what's going on in the world. So it's like it's almost like we carry the weight of the world on our shoulders mentally in our head by just churning all of these thoughts and all of this stuff. And then it's just like there's a tremendous amount of energy lost when so much energy is going in. We don't realize it, but a lot of energy gets lost when we're in our mind, you know, in the fears and the worries and the, oh, what are they thinking about me? And how does this person perceive me? And I don't want this person to misunderstand me, and it's just on and on. You know, there's a huge like loss of energy, which, you know, would make sense that we would feel tired, because there's a bunch, you know, I realized certain thought patterns in my mind were like these holes in my ship, and the water was leaking in, or, you know, and the ship would sink, it started sinking. So I was like, oh, I need to start patching these holes. And so I'd catch these thoughts, I'd catch these mind patterns and work on first bring awareness to them and then releasing them and releasing. The more I started releasing this, this sort of identification or this need to think constantly and start to enjoy just the silent presence more, the more I found I actually had a lot of energy, and it wasn't such a depletion. Now, I think physical tiredness is a little differently too than like the spiritual energy tiredness. If your body's physically tired, just take a nap. But being tired with the world's a bit different, and being tired with ourself, being tired with the dramas that we carry. It's just kind of what I hear in all of that. It's lovely to feel the freedom from the self, from the little self, like Travis mentioned. Like, it's interesting, there are two very polar or different definitions of self, and the little self, the ego self, is the exhausted, tired one, and then the self with a capital S is like the ultimate, the Atman self, that yeah, it's a powerful, lovely experience. So
Thank you, Ryan. It's beautiful because when Travis was speaking, I was exactly thinking of that exact word, leaking. It's like our consciousness, we don't realize the amount of thought activity and then the emotions it feeds is actually consciousness just leaking out. Instead of it flowing like 100%, all of consciousness flowing and moving into whatever we are doing, because we are having those 10,000 thoughts or 100,000 thoughts a day, it's just leaking. It's just going wasted mechanical energy. I've heard Jay Krishnamurti use that word, right? It's just wasted mechanical energy. And a person could feel depleted the more that they are spinning in the thought activity. So great insight. Thank you. Caesar's been away too last week. So Caesar, what insights do you have on this? Thank you.
Travis and Ryan touched on it very nicely. I like how Ryan explained the energy loss, which makes us tired. So the first thing that came through for me was the perception, and it seems like there would be some type of resistance to what is that makes up your reality or your world, so to speak. Because how could you be quote unquote tired of something if it was in full acceptance, which would suggest a state of gratitude if there was a complete acceptance of the world as it is, or anything that as is in whatever state. So it would be the mind perception of the self, as Travis said, and the energy that you are expelling through the chatter and the chaos in the thinking mind. First of all, where are we experiencing the world? Inside. We experiencing the whole entire universe on the inside. And that can be draining if, one, you are judgmental about it, and that creates the nonstop thinking and the chatter, as Eckhart says. And then it can be very tiring, obviously. And, if it wasn't for our five sense perceptions, we wouldn't even know we were experiencing this world of form as it is, for the most part. So, yeah, I would just have to piggyback off both the gentlemen's comments, and that it's a tiring world if you allow it to be, through resistance, and don't make so much of it. What's the saying about Eckhart refers to, here's a spiritual practice for you, don't take things so serious, or something to that effect. So yeah, simplify life and just let things be as they are, and wake up a little bit. That's my 2 cents.
Thank you, Caesar. What is it that he says? Life isn't as serious as the mind wants it to be, right? or something of that sort. The other part to it would be is when Ryan says the big S, or Eckhart says the deep I. When we are in the deep I, when there is that perfect alignment with inner beingness, it's an infinite source. It just flows. There is no tiredness in it. So what that statement is indicating is there is a gap. The alignment is not there, because if they were aligned, they would just experience consciousness flowing through the big S, the capital S, or the uppercase S, just flowing through. And that's all that was needed. That's the joy, the uncaused joy of being, right? Thank you. Eileen, did you want to say something about this? Have you experienced this
Yeah.
in the past?
And I have laughing because the conversation that we had right before we went live, and I should have known. I wasn't sick at all. Oh my goodness. The people who are watching, they won't know, but I was actually just down and out for 5 days. 5 days straight of just not being able to really do anything or think about anything except sleep. And makes sense for having this conversation today. And I say that because something that came to mind when Travis and Ryan were talking was trying to think of where I read it, but there's a quote that talks about like there being two different kinds of tired. There's the physical tired, need enough hours of sleep tired. And then there's the tired that comes from not necessarily lack of sleep, but lack of peace. And so that to me is that mind activity, the constant, thinking and doing, and not the actual being. Not enough of that time just being. And so I was kind of chuckling to myself when Ryan brought that up, because I was like, oh, of course that's what's been going on for the last 5 days. Because the life situation at the moment is really chaotic. But it does involve a lot of thinking and planning and to-do lists, which I've kind of broken myself from those. And now they're back because I just can't keep track of it all. But yeah, I do think that, it's definitely our own self. I know for me that it surely is. And that's exhausting.
Thank you, Eileen. And so this is like a perfect example of, if we think that we are just going to participate in making ourselves weary, just constant doing, finally something else pulls us. There's a magnetic pull. Somebody asked on that Eckhart Tolle, a community and presence site, she asked the question, because Eckhart explains this in one of the talks, I think it's in 2010 or 2011, where he says that if he continuously like we are lost on a mountain or something and we are hungry, there is suddenly and no sleep at all. Suddenly there's a pull. We will eventually sit down and like fall asleep. Like there's a pull, and that pull has a sweetness. And that's what he says is monitor yourself right before you're falling asleep, because you can experience that sweet preciousness of that pull of source. So source will pull us, right? So beautiful. Thank you so much, Eileen. I think, does Luis want to say something about this?
So what came to me was when I have felt like I'm sick of the world is kind of like, well, we create, you know, our reality, our world, what we see, what we feel. And so I think that a lot of times when we're sick of it, we're sick of ourselves and how we're viewing it, thinking about it, or feeling it. And so that's kind of what I took the meaning to be, is, you know, if we see, there's, I can't remember the quote exactly, but it's just however we view it. You know, if we see the world as beautiful and loving and kind people, then that's what we're, you know, that's what's inside of us. And so then there's no reason to be sick of it. But if we're seeing it as violent and hateful and, you know, all this negative stuff, then of course there's going to be a point where we're going to be sick of it. And so that's kind of what I took it to mean.
So the antidote to it is presence, like develop a presence practice. To not be sick of the world,
Right,
and not to be drawn into the violence.
right. And I think that in turn, you know, the more presence there is in your life, then that's that's how we create our reality, or we view the world. From the more that we're grounded and the more that we are centered, then things are a lot, you know, different. We view things so much different. And so yes, if we're not, you know, having that time where we're really spending time with ourselves, and being grounded, then we do see all the negativity, and we're a part of that then, you know, just like we're part of the positive.
Since you're that, I mean, you're not exactly in Boulder, but you're in the state of Colorado. What did you feel about like the collective energy of the state after the mass shooting? Because that's another violent, it just happened 2 days ago, right?
Yeah. And I try to kind of stay away from reading too much about it, because that's kind of like a protection on my part. So I try not to read too much about it. But, you know, people would text me, and, you know, because they know I'm in Colorado and I'm about 45 minutes away. And, but there's, you know, from what I could sense, is a lot of like anger and, oh, you know, that's why they shouldn't have this law and that law. And so everyone has an opinion, you know, and I guess, you know, I remember one of the times one of the things I remember Eckhart Tolle saying is that nobody really cares about your opinion. So it's best to just, you know, you don't really need to be out there, you know, and so I just kind of, you know, protect myself from that.
Thank you. Thank you, Louise.
Uh-huh.
I do the same, Louise. I don't watch too much of the news, but something of that nature, somebody will bring it up, right? Like either at work, somebody brings it up just in conversation. So thank you. Kelly, I'm sure you have something to say, Kelly.
Evening, everyone. Well, there's a lot of different types of fatigue. I really appreciate what everyone said, especially what Ryan said about, you know, the mental, emotional fatigue. And there's also spiritual fatigue when you are actually working on embodying your light and you are actually getting to a new threshold of awareness. It'll be fatiguing to hold your space against your ego. And that can come out as mental fatigue, emotional fatigue, and even physical fatigue. There's very well-researched reality and understanding that mental fatigue actually causes physical issues. or physical fatigue as well. When you are working on being in a space of holding your energy against your ego programming, that'll be fatiguing. Now, this comment about, or question about being tired of the world, often we as humans, we want to live in peace. We want to be able to love freely. We want to be able to enjoy our lives and enjoy our friendships and our connections and our humanness, right? But one of the realities that we also have to deal with is the darkness that's in the world. And oftentimes we do not want to look at the darkness, and we choose to avoid looking at the darkness. We choose to avoid looking at those spaces that make us uncomfortable. And often not looking at those spaces and not acknowledging that those spaces and those realities exist take up a lot of energy and can cause us a great deal of fatigue and mental stress. Now, the topic that was just brought up with Louise put on, the shooting in Colorado. I'm not going to get into the details or the narrative that's going on, but having been in public relations for 30 years, having been in a political family my entire life, looking at things in the news, I mean, it's never as simple as what's ever presented in the news. And the human element is always profoundly unfortunate and saddening when such things like this are experienced by a society. There's a lot that's going on right now, and there's a lot of anger, and there's a lot of fear, and this kind of darkness and the patterns of this type of darkness surfacing in society, in a culture, also need to be looked at. When we are practicing being present, we also have to understand that when we are understanding our own level of presence and awareness, and we see where other people are at, it's because of the work that we've done with ourselves and how much we have accepted our capacity to be present and to feel. And being present involves not just feeling the good, but also feeling the dark and feeling the bad in those places that we are uncomfortable looking at. And, having worked with First Nations here in Canada, having worked in a youth home for 6 years, a level 5 youth home, the highest risk of violence and other such wonderful experiences, there's a certain reality that people do not want to look at. The dirt and the grime of cultures and societies expanding and modernizing and pretending to be civilizations often gets glossed over. And these can cause cognitive dissonance and cause mental stress, and can cause a great deal of fatigue when we sort of, when they're in our face and we are made to look at them. So being tired of the world is about acceptance and allowance, not just of the space that you're in, but also the space that others are in. And just the acceptance in your heart that with the light and with the joy and the happiness, we also have to look at the sad and the darker places in our psyche, in our minds, in our hearts, and the pain, and how we are still attached to avoiding the pain, and how we are attached to hiding from the pain. Because, and this kind of actually goes to the next question that Eileen posted, is avoiding pain and suffering is an ego tactic of not being present. When we avoid pain and suffering, either in the outside world or in our own inner world, and our own inner stories and narrative, when we don't want to look at those dark places, when we want to, work at avoiding those uncomfortable places, and sort of like, I'll go over here and I'll do this to distract myself. There's enough distraction in the world already. outside in the world, let alone the distractions that our ego mind likes to generate for us. Avoiding the spaces that make us uncomfortable means that you are avoiding your own wisdom, and you are avoiding your own strength, and you're avoiding reclaiming those spaces for yourself. So being tired of the world, yeah, the patterns and the repetition of people being unkind to each other can be very trying and challenging to continuously have to deal with. And it's an unfortunate but very real part of being human right now on this planet, given the Great Awakening that is going on. And yeah, I could keep going. So I'll just pause there and let the other question be addressed, and I can keep going after that, after everyone else has had a chance to speak. My 2 cents.
Thank you, Kelly. After our last conversation, I actually made it a main post of that video that I talked about, because we started talking about our dark shadows, right? So the late Debbie Ford has actually done a beautiful, beautiful documentary called The Shadow Effect. And she shows this, right? That a person that can be like what was the other shooting in Atlanta, that it's a boy that's Christian, raised very religiously, and so that's a shadow, right? That's a shadow of the collective human mind that is existing. And it's not personal, so not to personalize that little boy. He's just participating in the collective unconsciousness and acting out like our shadow, right? So that documentary is very, very extremely, I have no words to explain, indescribable, the amount of wisdom that Dr. Deepak Chopra is in there, Marianne Williamson is in there, right? Each one presenting the shadow. And as to what you were saying, Kelly, about when we are trying to be spiritual, this mental aspect becomes like balancing the two, the ego and the spirituality, then becomes like very fatiguing. She explains it as having beach balls. Like we are in a swimming pool, and when we are young, the beach balls, we have it under the water. But the moment when we are older, when we become 40, 50 years old, they just pop out, and they pop out like this, that there's a shooting or there's some like event that we go, why is Mel Gibson this way, right? Or like the shadow comes out. Why is so and so? He was such a sweet person. Why did this sweet person go do this, right? Like suddenly we'd say, oh, Bernie Madoff was doing such a great job, and now he ran a Ponzi scheme, and it becomes unbelievable, right? That's another shadow. So beautiful. Thank you. Eileen, did you want to read the question? Nada.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
If something comes up in the present moment and I can imagine that it's going to make me feel uneasy and uncomfortable in the near future, I know that the future moment doesn't exist now. Does it make sense to take a drastic action in the present moment based on that knowledge to avoid suffering in advance?
Thank you, Eileen. Ryan, did you want to get started on that question?
Sure.
Thank you.
Yeah. Well, yeah, the first thing that comes up for me is the that first layer of unease and discomfort that's arising with the idea of future stuff coming. Because it's like, whether to take an action or not, first we have to be present with the suffering that's coming in now. And that, so if there's unease, discomfort, any kind of suffering arising because we, our mind's like, oh, what do I do about this future thing? That's the present moment suffering to honor, to look at, to kind of go, to bring presence into, and kind of work with that suffering and release that. I think one thing the mind does is it says like, if I'm feeling discomfort, if I can figure out this future event, my discomfort will resolve. And on one level, that there may be something to that, but on another level, what we see regularly, if you're watching that pattern, is that it never ends. The mind always fixes on the next future thing and the next future thing. And so we're constantly carrying this need to figure something out to resolve the unease that is in us currently. And that then just continues to get projected and projected. And so it turns into this never-ending cycle. And to me, that is fundamentally the most important, is like, okay, right now, how do I feel? Is there any suffering in me right now? And if there is, I need to just be present with it, use these practices in the right way. Kind of going back to the tired of self thing. I've learned a lot of this spiritual practice is, yes, there's the blissful joy of being. The other whole half of the equation, though, is taught me how to suffer, like how to work through my suffering, how to acknowledge it and breathe through it, and all this such thing. So in that sense, you can just practice this now. If the even that little feeling of unease or little feelings of discomfort about the future thing, then once you address this present unease, then from this place you'll get more into the stillness, more into an acceptance, and from there, I find it's wisest to, if you feel the need to make a choice for the future, you can do it from this place that is of peace and not from reactivity, and it will be effective. It'll be, strong. Maybe it means putting up a boundary. I mean, the question itself is a little vague. Like, it could be quite a spectrum of different situations to be occurring, and some more intense ones might require more immediate, more like drastic action versus something that might actually be a bit more like a little thing. But either way, I find noticing that unease in this moment, working through that now, then from that, I think Course in Miracles, as Eckhart says, correct action arises out of stillness. And it's something I constantly hold on to, because then it's like, okay, if I'm trying to figure out what to do for the future, one of the best thing I can do for that is to first settle my being, settle my emotional state, so to speak. And if I can get into stillness, then correct action will rise, and it's worked very, very well for me. So yeah, that's what comes up.
Beautiful. Thank you, Ryan. I don't even think that one of the things that we've discussed in quite a few of our sessions is, I know Caesar follows Abraham Hicks. One of her very common sayings is, the vibrational energy of the solution is a totally different frequency than the vibrational energy of the problem. So unease and uncomfortable is showing us there's a problem. And the way you say it, right, become still. So now we are not vibrating at that level. If not, we'll just spin. We'll go from uneasy to anxiety, some fear, right? And Eckhart in the talk on the Bhagavad Gita says, the moment fear arises, we contaminate the action, right? So we've contaminated the action instead of coming into stillness and acceptance, the way you say it, Ryan, and then peace flows, right? And maybe whatever we are projecting that the future moment will be, that may not even happen, just because we are still, right? Our stillness dissolve the uneasiness, dissolve the uncomfortableness, and out of that stillness, I don't know what may happen. I may make the right choice. I may make the wrong choice, but whatever choice it is, right? And then we move from there, then to the next life situation, then to the next, but beautiful. Acceptance, accept the situation, change it, or leave. 3 options. So acceptance is the easiest thing to do, right? Instead of leaving and changing. Trying to change again takes efforting, right? Like, again, you have to generate enough consciousness to change the situation. So acceptance seems to be like the first stage. So beautiful. Thank you, Ryan. Louise, did you want to say something about this? You've had quite a few challenges in your life. I'm positive you have like a lot of wisdom around this. Thank you.
Well, yeah, I really like what Ryan said. I think that that's helped me a lot too, is to just not ignore that uneasy feeling. And it took me a while to really understand when people would say to sit with it. And I think it was Byron Katie who said, like to analyze things and question things if it doesn't like tend to go away. And so a lot of times that's kind of what I'll do is like, okay, why am I feeling uneasy about this? What is this about? Like, where's this coming from? What limiting belief do I have about this? And the more and more that I've like investigated it, then it does dissolve itself. Or even, if I have to like stop because like one of the kids needs me or something like that, and it's not fully resolved, that uneasiness, I won't go to the next step until I've really worked through that and figured out like, why am I feeling this way? And that does, it has helped a lot in a lot of situations. And then I just let it be, and usually the solution will come up in some form or manner. Like, somebody will say something that I'll go, oh, I didn't even think about that. That's a perfect, option. Or maybe even just after sleep, waking up, and I'll just feel this like, this like urge to do something, or like, that's it, like, that aha moment. But I do feel like sitting with it, looking at it, just will open up like answers. Or and also I think just taking the time to, not saying like, oh, okay, I gotta, I'm in meditation for 20 minutes here, I gotta like sit with this for 20 minutes, and okay, but like to really, really feel resolved within yourself, to really have that feeling of like, okay, I understand now where it's coming from, and I've like released it.
Beautiful. Thank you, Louise. And I feel that having a normal presence practice when everything is normal helps, because normally we know what is the meditative or what stillness is. Because we've had the practice, the moment the little flicker of unease arises, we recognize it and we know we need to sit with it. And the reason we can sit with it is because we've had a practice, right? If not, the mind will say, no, go get that chocolate cake. Let me eat a chocolate cake. Or let me go shopping, right? Like a lot of people, that retail therapy line is actually, let me get on Amazon and order like 30 things on Amazon, right? That's the mind taking us away from the unease, going and doing something else, right? Let me go order something on Amazon, something that I don't even need ever in my life. I'm never even going to look at it, right? So thank you. Thank you for that.
Mm-hmm.
Beautiful. Caesar, did you want to say something about this?
Sure. yeah, creating, as if you can read the future and determine what's going to happen.
In the future, I see us playing a
Oops.
few games.
I'm sorry.
Ask me to some-
I apologize. So to me, it'd be more like almost in a segment intention of sorts, to just release the worry or the fear of what possibly may happen. Because if you're setting yourself up for that which you're insisting that there is going to be some type of unease in the future, then perhaps it is based off things that happened in the past as a result of something that you're going to do again. Well, not to say that it's predominant, and it is definitely not going to show up, but it would help if you would just allow things to unfold as they are without giving it thought, because you are fueling that the worry or the fear that you're worried about. You're actually fueling that, and almost as if you're manifesting it to be there in the future, waiting for you, by making such a claim. If there's something you can do about the future, is you do it in the moment, like Ryan was saying. You do it now. Now's the opportunity, and then let it be. Simply let it be and allow it to come as it does. And the contents of the future, as a result of whatever it is you're doing, full acceptance of that will eliminate the fear, because fear is something that you create as well. Yes. So yeah, I would just say, to not incorporate, just clean up the thinking a little bit, so to speak, and even your wording about the future, instead of making the projection of that's going to be uncomfortable when that moment gets here. Just perhaps say, because personally, I know a lot of us look forward to that contrast, and we wait for things. We don't wait for them to show up, but we invite them to show up, because we know there's a lesson in that unease when they do show up. So I would just say, it's just to let the future unfold as it does, and don't set yourself up for that fear, for that manifestation, by giving it power of thought in that way. So stay positive about it, and if anything, give it a positive effect, and reverse it. Instead of saying, this is going to be uncomfortable when this happens, say, I can't wait to get there, because I know there's going to be a valuable lesson within it for me. And acceptance of what is going to carry you through that, and it's going to relinquish the fear and the unease. Quite frankly, yes, my 2 cents.
Thank you. And we've talked about limiting belief. Just because we were conditioned from the past that such and such action will end up in this type of outcome, we are already manifesting it out of our past conditioning, the same outcome over and over again. Right? That's what you're saying, Cecil. Thank you. Kelly, you raised your hand. You were going to say something? Oh, you were doing thumbs up. Thank you. Travis, did you want to say something about Nada's question? Thank you.
Sure.
Thank you.
For one, it's nice, it's pleasant to listen to everybody's responses, because it feels like we're all touching on these different angles, so complementary. So it's just fun to be a part of. And I guess when I look at the question, it says, if something comes up in the present moment and I can imagine that it is going to make me feel uneasy and uncomfortable in the near future, I would imagine that imagining that it is going to make me feel uncomfortable in the near future, just imagining that would make me feel slightly uncomfortable right now. And I don't really know that it's going to make me feel uncomfortable in the future. I think it would. I think it might, but I'm not sure. And so when I look at all this, and it's a question about what to do, right? And there isn't a very specific situation that's arisen. So in any situation, what do I do? How do I know what to do? Well, I mean, the first thing that comes to me is just do your best. Just do whatever feels best. And how do I know what feels best? Not by thinking. but by feeling. And so it reminds me of I don't know what Bruce Lee movie it was, but there's a scene where somebody's practicing some sort of kung fu training, right? And Bruce Lee stops the person. He stops him and he says, "Don't think, feel," because we have to be responsive. And it comes from a deeper place inside of us that we can't understand conceptually. And how do we, or you could even, not to reference too many movies from the 70s, but even if it's, you know, in Star Wars, when he's learning the Force, learning the ways of the Force, and he's training, again, he's practicing when there's nothing serious going on in both of these instances. They're both taking the time to practice and train and be prepared for when the challenges that it seems that Nada is referencing here, they arise, they come up inevitably to test how well we've come to that place within ourselves. They test our practice. So, and in that, there's a scene there where he's training and his teacher says, put the blindfold down, put the blaster shield down. And he's wanting him to use the Force, right? To some force, some power within himself is now guiding his response to this in these cases, like, you know, physical combat training or whatever. But so for me, you know, in Eckhart Tolle lingo, we call presence is what's presence. It's being here. It's not being absent. It's being present, and you would do that now. So it's being here now. And so the more that we can practice that, the more that we can simply be here, then spontaneously, because again, in this question, and this has been touched on in the panel in responding to this, we reference our past experiences to try to calculate and decide what to do for the present or upcoming experience, when in reality, everything that happens is utterly unique and requires that degree of sensitivity so that we can address this situation that has arisen that is unlike any other situation that's come up before, with the appropriate spontaneous response. To do that, we have to be less overcome by thinking and more in feeling, more in being. And what's fun is that, and what I've noticed sometimes in my life, and I always really get a kind of a kick out of, is sometimes I'll do things and they don't make sense to me, and I don't know what it is I'm doing or why it is I'm doing it exactly. And then later on, it's revealed to me that I was doing something that was really deeply in touch, and I wasn't really aware of what or why. And that makes me feel happy, because I want to be in deep accordance with life. I want to move with those deep currents of life and be one with those movements. And so it's almost as though it's reflected back to me. I'm reassured, or I'm you know, it reminds me that to keep doing that, keep moving in that way. And so that can be really fun if we can really reside in being, and really get into feeling our way through life and dancing our way through life, so that we can be more in unison, more in rhythm, more in harmony. And then we can play a small hand in these things that could seem really great and orchestrated and such. So that's my answer to that.
Thank you so much, Travis. And the going with the feeling, or what Eckhart says, ask what life wants from me. You're almost saying that, dwell in the unknowingness, or dwell in the unknowable, in our essence, which is ultimately unknowable, the formlessness. So dwell there and then we don't know what's going to happen, and move, be in the listening mode, ask planetary intelligence, universal intelligence, what is my next action? And the right thing will happen, is the example that you're giving. Thank you. Eileen, did you want to say something about
Sorry.
Nada's question?
So there was actually a couple of things that came up for me right away, but as people were sharing, like each and every one of the things was said by someone. It was like a mix of like 4 different people. So I won't add anything, and I know we have some other questions coming in too.
Were you
Okay.
going to say your G word?
Oh, yes, yes. Although that's funny that that didn't actually come up immediately.
I was
but-
going to say it, but I knew you
Actually,
would.
it did come up immediately because of that one line that she said. It says, I know that the future, no, not before that, going to make me feel uneasy and uncomfortable. And like the first thing that came to mind before anybody started talking was that experiences that I've had where you can be grateful for it, not necessarily being so. And so like, but Caesar kind of brought it up anyway. Just putting yourself in a position of being grateful and in the present, I wouldn't be going into the future unless it is being grateful that the what's meant to be is going to be, because it's going to happen the way it's meant to be anyway, regardless of how you plan. If it's meant to go poorly,
No matter
it's going to go poorly to give you a lesson.
no matter how traumatic, no matter how tragic.
No, I'm grateful for absolutely everything and anything that is.
Beautiful. Thank you. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
No, that's okay.
Thank you. I wanted to bring out the experiences were traumatic. It's not easy to, I mean, Eileen is saying it very softly, that to be grateful. I know what experience she's gone through.
Yeah.
So it's like tragic and traumatic both together. So, and transformation happens. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. And I share those experiences with people often because it's very traumatic and very real and almost unbelievable that you can go through those. I mean, we're talking multiple things, multiple traumatic events, but going through all of those and really, truly, honestly, being grateful for every single one of them.
Beautiful. Thank you. Kelly, did you want to say something to Nada? I know you read the question before.
There's a lot of good things that have been said. Primarily what's going on is a projection into the future of a potential possibility of something maybe happening that we think might actually occur. So, you know, I really couldn't add all that much to what's already been said. Everyone's done a really good job of talking about this. And yeah, you gotta, step back from the fear that you're projecting onto the situation, the assumption. And honestly, if something's gonna make you uneasy and uncomfortable and you're trying to avoid it, what are you doing? Like really, what are you putting your energy towards? Are you putting your energy towards accepting and allowing and being present, or are you actually working on being defensive and avoiding reality? My 2 cents.
Thank you, Kelly. The next question, I want you to answer the next question, please.
Okay.
Is the intuition's warning a product of a past conditioning? Does it influence that gut feeling? Is the next question from Cecile.
Yep, from Cecile.
Thank you.
Or Cecil, or so this is a bit of a complicated question because it's both a yes and a no. Because We have our environment, the external world that influences us and our decision-making parameters. And we have our ego, which will meddle with our intuition. And then we have our heart intuition, which is the pure connection to source, which gives us the true answer. And intuition is gut feeling. And yeah, we can have past conditioning and past pain and past fear absolutely influence our ability to discern our intuition and the information that we're getting and mess with it. And this is why having a practice, being present, meditating, qigong, yoga, running, walking, whatever, you know, swimming, ball hockey, whatever works for you, you know, having something that'll get you out of your head and get you feeling your body and getting you feeling the present moment is so incredibly important. So incredibly important. So the part of the fight, flight, and freeze response that the reptilian brain automatically generates is because of past conditioning. However, being present, you can step beyond that into observation, observe those conditioned responses, and actually choose the fourth option of being neutral and listening to your heart and listening to your connection to source and what that actually has to say about any given situation. And Poonam, you said with the last question was about actually asking the collective consciousness, asking our higher selves the question and actually listening. That's a really good practice. It is something that I do all the time. Learning to listen to myself is what being present is all about. So yeah, you got to be aware of past trauma and past pain and past situations that have influenced and have impacted you. So yes. Short answer, yes.
Thank you so much, Kelly. So I didn't quite understand the question, but Cecilia also adds, or intuition is just pure energy. Caesar, you want to, thank you, Kelly. Caesar, you want to address, is it pure energy?
Yeah, I believe intuition most definitely is energy that must be felt when you are present. You have to be home, so to speak, to receive that. Or perhaps in a place of stillness, that you're going to receive the impulses that the universe is constantly giving you. By way of a feeling, it provides or can provide clarity. The more you are present, the more you are rooted in your being. I believe that gut feeling, or that what they're calling intuition, can be a very precise form of clarity in the same sense, because receiving the intuition is something that you have to ask for, because there would be, how do I put this? It would be suggested that there is a question of something in order to have to use your intuition to know what it is that you're seeking the answer to by way of intuition. So it is a feeling. We know that feelings are, you know, a source of energy, and that connectedness. So, and I think the stiller you are at times, then that would allow your intuition to become a little more effective, I should say, and it should be done without thought, and it's just basically going off that heart feeling. In the gut, what does she say about the gut here? An intuition warning product of past conditioning. No, the warning of product of past conditioning, that would be the thought aspect of the of intuition. That's not intuition. The past conditioning would be the mental aspect of it. And intuition, I don't think has anything to do with thought. I think it's the absence of thought that allows the intuition to come through as a gut feeling to provide you your clarity of what it is you need to do in the moment.
Thank you so much, Caesar. So intuition is more of a development of, it's like muscle power. The more presence power we have, we build into intuition, insights, imagination, creativity, right? So it requires presence. What I'm hearing from Kelly and what I'm hearing from you is it requires presence power. You can't just say, okay, women, even Eckhart says, right, women, because they have more of the feminine energy, the yin energy, they do have more intuition, but doesn't mean that every woman is blessed with a lot of intuition. Women can make mistakes as well, but it is a muscle power that we build the more we go into presence practice. And it has nothing to do with the past conditioning, because past conditioning is a mental pattern, right? It's not going to be that insight that comes from planetary intelligence or universal intelligence. Thank you. Thank you, Caesar. Louise, did you want to say something about intuition? And is it a gut feeling?
Well, I think that it was explained very well. I don't really have any more to add to that. It definitely is a gut feeling. I mean, for me it is. But I do think that the more present, the more that you are, aligned, and the more presence that you have in your life, then the more you do have a stronger intuition about what to do, or what that gut feeling is more, it's stronger, and so you're able to, I think, make like wiser decisions, and answers come to you, and a lot of things that we question quite often is really the answers are really right there. We just need to go within and allow.
Thank you, Louise. So more of the presence practice, do your meditation, do your, however you do your presence in a body work or breath work, right? Thank you. Travis, did you have anything to say about intuition? The question from Cecile. Thank you.
Sure. One thing I like that I'm hearing kind of echoed around is just this theme today of practicing all of these things when there aren't things that are major, pressing, extremely challenging going on. I think that's really huge. And I think that it's the same with intuition. Maybe we hear something speaking up from inside of us, and maybe we don't know if it's coming from our mind or from the beyond shining through us from deep down within us. Well, if maybe we could try it with things that aren't so high stakes, and then we can get a better sense of what part of ourself we're listening to, what part of ourselves we're. So it's fun to play with and experiment with these things. And it seems like in general, these questions are around intuition. What is the nature of intuition? How do I know that it's intuition and not something else? I mean, to me, even in the word intuition, it's coming from inside. It's coming from within. It's not out tuition. And so I think the more that we go within, the more that we look within, the more that we can take our attention, which is by and large and automatically directed outwardly toward the world, and take it in 180 flip and turn that attention in on itself, turn our attention inward towards the space from which it arises. It's like it's been said here, that's going to help us to get more in touch with our intuition. And so yeah, I guess some of the reflections or questions that came up for me while listening to everyone speak on this were, well, intuition, where does it come from? And I go, well, it kind of comes from the beyond. It kind of comes from off over the horizon in some unknown space, out of the unknown. And then I thought, well, where does it come through? Is there a place that it shines through the body more? Does it shine through here more than here in my heart, or down at my seat, or in my gut? Or is there a place that I should look or reference inside of my body to see where it's coming from? There is a part of me that feels like kind of down below where my camera is, down everywhere down from there's definitely something to that, that's more in the body, even from your seat, from your pelvic floor, or your in your gut, or in your heart. These messages are going to shine through. Something's going to go, hey, trying to tell you something. So if we're just in the receptive mode and listening, we might hear those messages. If we're just quiet and if we're just listening, then we'll be better able to hear those messages that are coming from. You can look at it lots of different ways. It could be coming from our deepest self. It could be coming from helpful kindred spirits. It could be, who knows? So, but those are my thoughts around it, is just to experiment with it, especially in situations that are maybe not so high stakes, and just play around with it and have fun with it, and try to get a sense of where it's coming from, in the body. Maybe it is coming from your mind's eye as a vision. Maybe it's coming from your heart as a more emotional feeling, or from your gut as a more almost like a quick reaction, responsive kind of feeling there. Or so, but just to look inside and turn our attention inward, is going to help us to better access, and also the more that we practice with it, and then we'll develop a sense of trust as we experience, and go through those tests and go through those experiences and come out the other side. We go, I listened and it worked. I've had I had a time once where I was young and I was hitchhiking across the country, and I had this image of this place come to me, and I followed it, and I started writing a song and describing this place, because I could just see it so vividly. And then a day later, a friend called me, my quadriplegic friend, and he said, hey, do you want to come work for me at the ranch in New Mexico? And I said, oh, okay, yeah, that'd be great, and I'll buy you a bus ticket. And so I went out there, and the next morning I was sitting on a bench out in front of the pond. And I thought, oh my gosh, here are the trees I wrote about, and the reeds, and the pond, and all these things. And so, just and so experiences like that, it makes me go, wow, maybe I can really be in touch with myself. Maybe I can't. And then you grow in confidence in your ability, the more that we trust these feelings and go with them. So play with it.
That's not intuition, Travis. That's called remote viewing.
Oh yeah, maybe that's not intuition, but it's something that would make me trust my intuition, I suppose.
Karen
or
Noel,
trust in my ability.
When we had that coursework with Karen Noel and Dr. Evan Alexander, Karen Noel said you can hold an envelope, right? And maybe have a picture like of a mountain in the envelope and put it in front of the person that's doing the remote viewing, and they can experience the whole scene. Like they can see the mountain, they can feel the cold, like as though they are actually there. at the mountain. That's remote viewing, but both intuition, not only intuition, clairvoyance, telepathy, all of these are the higher, when we get into the fourth state of consciousness, the higher states of consciousness, then we develop these powers all the more, right? Having this remote viewing. So whenever you were that age, you had that power, but you were more endowed with that power if you were able to visualize something that beautiful. Thank you. And so along with medical medium, I also follow Dr. Mark Hyman, which is functional medicine. He's a functional medicine doctor, pretty popular, right? Like he's like a Dr. Oz of functional medicine. And his most recent conversation, they were saying that most of the illnesses are because of illness of the gut. Like, you know, they talk about leaky gut. And I kind of feel is because human beings have been ignoring their intuition. When they were talking about that, I was like, they're all in their mind, right? They're not down here, not inhabiting the body. So then starts the leaky gut, then starts the gut problem, the microbiome problem, right? And right now in functional medicine, that is like the biggest movement, restoring the microbiome, right? That's why the probiotics, the raw probiotics that they prescribe functional medicine doctors. But there is a lot of IBS, right? Irritable bowel syndrome, leaky gut, all these problems with a lot of human beings. So I think that's also an indicative, right? That people are not listening to their intuition. So thank you for the gut and the connection between the gut and the lower. Thank you. Eileen, did you want to talk about intuition? And I know Nancy has joined us and there are online questions, but anything on intuition?
Not, I mean, I trust it. I go with my gut, and now my son says the same thing. I'm gonna go with my gut. But I don't really have anything to add, but I did like how you connected that to the state of our health. And I would agree.
I just listened to him and Dr. Mark Hyman talk to Dr. Stephen Gundry. I don't know if, I'm sure on YouTube and everything, Stephen Gundry is somebody who talks against tomatoes, lectin, eating something that has lectin. So he's pretty popular as well on the functional medicine side. So thank you. Let's check with Nancy. Nancy, did you have a question or you're just listening?
I don't know if I have a question, but sure, I don't mind. Oh, I'm here. Hold it. I don't mind making a comment. There I am. Like, obviously, I don't know a lot about intuition because I have it took me weeks to figure out if I was going to stay or going to go. And I was in so much turmoil. I did everything from, you know, go to psychics and have somebody pull a card, like all that stuff, because I could not trust myself with this decision. And this group even said that maybe you should stay where you are and keep working through the feelings and la, la, la. But I didn't, you know, so my feeling was to be pulled back north. And here I am in an isolation center for the next 2 weeks. But I get here and I'm actually fairly depressed that I'm here because it's like, what have I done? I've done it again, you know, so I could probably tell people how not to do it. So, but what I am finding out and what I've learned is because I'm so in my mind, I've been in my mind for so long that I had literally forgotten how to go into that place of stillness and to look for the answer in there. So that's one part of it. The other part is now that I'm here again, I couldn't help but ask myself, am I addicted to this town? Can you actually be addicted to a place? Because I spent a fortune to come here. I don't have a job. I've had to scramble around to find a place to live. I don't even know what I'm going to do here. And so it could actually be a little self-destructive coming here. So there's all of these things that I think you need to work through in order to find your intuition again, because intuition is a God-given gift, and it does come through the heart, it comes through the body, it comes through many of those things that we're not trained to follow. I mean, I was trained to follow a career. I was trained to be successful. That's how my messaging was. So to go back and disregard all of that and go back, I think, to the inner self to get that figured out and to trust something greater than me, because I can't seem to come up with the answer. So it is about finding something greater than me so that I can follow those next steps. So that's all I have to say about it. I mean, now that I'm here, I'm spending many hours meditating now and studying, and I have nothing better to do, but that's not a thing to say. But I mean, I'm forced into it now, so that's what I'm doing. But yeah, so thanks.
Thank you so much, Nancy. So there was another question from John Turner. Does the panel think that sometimes people practice presence with the aim of getting better at being present? Caesar, you want to take that?
Sure. Well, presence is as good as it's ever going to be at the present moment. The longer you can, I guess the more you practice presence, I guess the longer you can dwell there. Your intervals become longer when you can dwell in the place. The practice is always a good thing as long as you're practicing properly, I would say. I practiced the wrong golf swing for a few years, and it didn't help me much. So yeah, I guess to answer your question, I guess that would be the aim, but the present moment can never be better than what it is in any moment. It's perfect as it is. And I just want to touch on something that Nancy said. Nancy, don't doubt that you're there if you can still hear me. Questioning whether or not you made the right choice in being there. Yep. I can assure you that you did, because you are there. So embrace that, because if you wasn't supposed to be there, you wouldn't be. So for whatever reason, maybe take this time and perhaps delve back into that book one more time, because it seems to me like you're close to making the shift, because your soul is seeking the answers, and without you putting in the work to get that, and it's just going to happen for you, I do believe, soon. But spend less time worrying about it and more time getting involved in things such as this and in the book. And the one thing that you hear at the right moment is, it might be a conversation you overhear is going to literally make that shift happen within you. And all of them, I know I can probably speak for everybody on when the shift was made within us or myself. It's been a long time since I can tell you that there's not been peace in my life, and life still happens to a degree that it always happened. It's just now I'm able to not react or respond in any, manner. There's no more thinking and the chaos and the worry and the fear of this and that, and wondering if I'm doing the right thing or in the right place. So just stay steady in the seeking, Nancy, and maybe my advice would be to get back into that book one more time. It took me several times reading The Power of Now in particular before that shift happened for me, and I feel like that will happen for you as well. So stay the course. Obviously you are being persistent in your pursuit to for peace and it comes through presence. Presence is just that. There are no problems in the present moment. So whenever you are feeling that unease or that worry or the fear or the anxiety, know that it's not coming from a place of presence. Your mind is projecting, or it's the imagination or the memory that's you're suffering. In reality, it is the imagination, being the future, or the memory of the past that is creating the suffering within. So full acceptance of the present moment is very gratifying, because it says everything that this moment contains is perfect as it is, regardless. And it's hard not to feel grateful for the present moment when you are in full acceptance of it. And to get back to the question, yes, practice can provide longer intervals of presence. So it's my nickel.
Thank you so much, Caesar.
Nancy.
Thank you, Nancy. Kelly, did you want to answer John Turner's question? Then I'll move to Daphne's, because you nodded, I kind of think that you have more to say on, does the panel think that sometimes people practice presence with the aim of getting better at being present?
Sure. First, I'd like to make a comment about intuition, or the what was it? Yeah, Seal was asking about whether or not intuition is pure energy. I'd actually sort of disagree with Eckhart on his perception of intuition and how women have more of it than men. Men just have a different kind of intuition because we are more balanced in the male structural energetics than the female fluid energetics. So men and women both have intuition. They both have equal depths of intuition, just very, very different. And often because women have that monthly cycle where they are forced to feel, it is more accessible and more easily accessible for women to consciously connect with that space. Men, from my experience and from a lot of conversations I've had with my mom and a lot of the women in my life, and being educated on the subject and their perspective, and using that to reflect on my own level of intuition. Intuition comes from that cosmic spark that we all have in our heart. The secret chamber that we have in our hearts physically is where the Holy Spirit, or where our consciousness is actually anchored physically in the body. So our intuition, whether or not we are men or women, actually comes from our hearts and comes from feeling in our body. It's got nothing to do with mental levels of awareness. It has everything to do with our capacity to feel, which is why women have a natural doorway to that space. Now, to John Turner's comment, everything takes practice. Even even Eckhart Tolle, after his awakening, took him a few years to sort of figure out exactly what had happened, and took him a few years to refine his understanding of everything that he was feeling, everything that he was processing, and what he had actually undergone, and how that turned into his practice. So yeah, I mean, there's the practice of when you actually get to a certain level of discipline and practice where it becomes more and more natural, but to get to that space, it takes practice. So yeah, practicing at being present is a thing. It's totally legitimate and totally like what you need to do, what everybody needs to do. Because without actually practicing, you don't understand how to have a practice. You don't understand how to build a practice. You don't understand how to actually have that connection to being present and being aware of how to practice and what you need as your discipline. So So yeah, you kind of do have to aim in that direction of being present, and you have to practice at that, and you have to go inward and look at why you're not able to be present, and why you're not able to actually, you know, why we get pulled out of being focused and aware, or why you get, you know, and not present. So that's the practice, and it takes a lot of practicing at the practice to develop that practice. How many more times can I say practice? Can I?
I kind of think that the way he said presence with the aim of getting better at being present, he may mean that they're not actually getting present, they're just practicing.
Oh, yes. Yes. Short
Right.
answer is yes. There are a lot of people who skim the surface. I'm going to go into, you know, spiritual materialism definitions here, left, right, and center, because there are a lot of people who will read, you know, something like Eckhart's book on Power of Now, and they'll get it intellectually, and they'll be able to talk about it, and they'll be able to, quote unquote, you know, and use quotes, practice being present, but are not actually present. And in fact, I've had quite a lot of people like this in my life, close friends that are no longer friends, because, you know, I expose them as basically not actually doing their work. When, you know, they'll talk to me and they'll try and turn everything around on me, and I'd be like, so hold on a second, versus like, what are you doing with your mind right now? Like, why are you like making this about me all of a sudden? We were, you know, trying to have a two-way communication here, and, you know, supporting this understanding of, you know, what we're talking about in this topic. So yes, there are people that practice, there are people that fake it, there are people that are really good at talking about the concepts, and who are really high functioning intellectuals. I come from a family of them. There are really high functioning intellectuals out there, and narcissists. Let's talk about narcissism for a while, because gosh darn it, they're really good at masking. They're really good at hiding in plain sight, and they're really good at making you believe that you are wrong. So there are a lot of people out there who will project outward an understanding, an intellectual understanding, but not actually be emotionally present, and actually have no concept of emotional responsibility, and have a complete lack of being able to be emotionally responsible or emotionally present. And that's a reality. You know, whether or not you want to get into the psychology of it, the spirituality of it, or the metaphysics of it, it's a reality. It's a real thing. So, yes, thank you for the clarification put on. I absolutely agree that John is on to a very important topic. The you know, the fake it until you make kind of crowd, or kind of mentality, instead of like, oh well, yeah, I can talk about it, so like I'll make it there eventually. It's like, no, you got to go inside, you know. And people who have done their work, and who have a practice, and who have discipline, and who have a certain level of awareness will know, you know. And that's, I've lost quite a few friends over this, where it's just like, and a marriage. So, you know, yeah, it's a thing.
Thank you, Kelly. So I'll move to the next question, and then go around with the panel with the next question. And y'all can, the ones that did not answer John's question, you can answer both questions. The next question is Daphne asking, my daughter has decided she doesn't want to have a relationship. How do I cope? Louise? Did you want to answer Daphne's question, and then you can answer even John Turner's question?
Yeah. So again, it's just about acceptance. I think, you know, we can't force anybody to, you know, love us, to be our friend, to be a part of our lives, to change. You know, we all have our own path and you know, we make our own decisions and our free will. And I think it's something that we really just have to come to grips with, that we're only responsible for our own selves. And, you know, there is, you know, as we have said here too, is there's always a reason for everything. And we don't always know what that reason is. But I do believe that things happen for, the reason that they happen is for us to get something of value from it. And I think it's also about not being attached to things that we have no control over, because you know, as many of you know, my daughter is living on the streets, and that's something that before I had this practice in my life, I would have told you that I would never be able to get over this, that I would be devastated without my daughter, that I wouldn't be able to eat or drink. I mean, I would have taken it to every extreme, because I felt that that's how it should be, that a mother and daughter should be attached all the time, and that you should have an awesome relationship with your, you know, mother or your daughter, and that's just the way it should be. But sometimes it's not, well, many times it's not what it should be. And sometimes we don't get everything we want in life. And we might not ever know what that reason is, but there is that trust that whatever we do have, or whatever is, you know, whatever is in that present moment, like Caesar was saying, is that perfect. That's it. That's all we need. That's all there is that moment, that present moment. And it does, I think, take some degree of, you know, this coming to you in some way. But I also feel that once I did make that shift, that my daughter has her own path, I have my own path, and it was just pretty instant that I just realized that it is what it is, and this is, and I accept it. And we don't, you know, always get what, you know, I was thinking that for some reason this scripture, this story in the Bible came up just now, and it was one of the apostles, Paul, was asking Jesus to heal his what they said in the Bible as a thorn in his side. And Jesus responded that your grace is sufficient enough. And I think that's something that I feel has helped me with my relationship with my daughter, is just being thankful for grace. That's enough. The grace that I'm given every single day, I don't need any more. And being acceptant of the present moment, that's enough. So those are my thoughts on it.
You're incredible, Louise. And that's why I directed the question to you first, because I knew you would speak from experience and offer, like, be exemplary, like offer that to, and beautiful, incredible. There's no other words that one could say right beyond that. That you offer that example of acceptance of what is, right? And if the daughter is not in a relationship with you, which is Daphne's case, then that, in that instance, planetary intelligence is saying, Daphne, be by yourself. look at reality. What is reality saying? Be by yourself. Why is it saying be by yourself? That means you don't have alignment with your inner beingness. And all these external things, the daughter, the grandkids, or the daughter's husband, or the partner, or something else, the dog, the cat, whatever you may have in the external world, planetary intelligence is stripping you off that, right? That's the spiritual lesson in that. Why is it stripping you off? So that you can be with your inner beingness. And this is one of the things that I say, your inner being has always been with you, even as a baby. All the way, as soon as you were born, your inner being was there, and we had never aligned. And all the spiritual lessons all throughout life are about being in alignment. And I know you had a very close relationship with your daughter, right, Louise? When she was younger, you were very close.
Yeah.
You said you did yoga and everything with her. So beautiful.
Yeah.
So all the more like the bond would be there, that, okay, now when she's 20, when she's 30, when she's 25, when she's 26, she should still be with me, because look how she was when she was 12, 13 with me, right? You want to continue that experience, but that's not what planetary intelligence is saying, right? So acceptance of what is. Beautiful. Travis, did you want to say something to Daphne or John's question as well? Thank you.
Sure. Just going to look at Daphne's question here. Well, that's got to be one of the more challenging situations that life can present. You know, what I can say from my experience, either with death, where it's not necessarily the person's wish to not be in my life, but regardless of whatever they might wish for and what I might want in that moment, it's not up to us, and that's what's happening. Or there are times when people in my life that I care for so deeply, I'm estranged from. And there are also times where the relationship exists and carries on, but I'll realize that I'm not getting all of the things that I think I want or think I might want out of the connection and relationship with that person. And then what happens from there, everything changes, and now it's different. And now you have a different configuration with different people, some of them there, some of them gone. Qualities of relationships change in time. And so now that the circumstance is different than it was, and then it changes again. And so as I've gone through my life and experiencing that, you know, I moved around a ton as a kid and had to build new relationships. And anyway, so what my experience has done to me, and why I'm grateful for all of the loss and that, because what matters more to me than my relationships with others and my connections with the people that I love so much, my goals don't matter more than that to me. I care about people. And so what I've been almost forced in a way to find, and almost forced in a way to care about, is I go, okay, well, I wasn't able to rely on that in the way that I thought I wanted to. Is there that which is utterly reliable? And can I know what that is? Can I connect with that, if indeed there is such? And so it's actually through the pain and the loss and things not working out the way that I might have wanted them to, and kind of how you suggested, Poonam, in my case, like right now, I have a lot of solitude. I'm living alone and in a pandemic, and my life's great. I live in, I mean, I like my home. I like my neighborhood. I like my food. I like my stuff. It's all pretty nice. But there's a lot of solitude, more than I would normally require or request. And so, but I'm grateful for it because it's created this opportunity for me to find again and again and again that which is so easy to lose and so easy to overlook and so hard to see through all of the movement and all of the change and the veil of illusion, or whatever you want to call it, through to reality that is immutable and not changing, that because I need something I can count on. I need a place I can call home that won't not be home later. I need peace. I need lasting peace. And I haven't found a human being yet who's able to give that to me. So I might have to depend upon myself to find it, to access it. And and I don't know what door that peace will come through. It might very well come from within myself. I guess I say that with a bit of humor because I experience that time and time again, and increasingly. That peace and that sense of stability, and that which is not subject to change and doesn't come and doesn't go and is easy to overlook, and at the same time is infinitely more real than everything that is so easy to see or to know. So that's my response to relationships and the challenge that relationships bring. Is we have to find that which is steady and reliable and substantial, and because when we find that within ourselves, because it is within ourselves, it's within everything. When we find that, then it flips the whole script kind of. And now we can bring that to our relationships. And instead of looking at what I can get out of my relationships, I can look at what I can bring to the relationship. And so that it's really beyond me, but that unchanging, immutable truth, that inexhaustible strength and love and intelligence and wisdom and patience, all of those things, they can shine through me into the relationships that I share with other people, other humans, and it's through being able to share all of that I discover who I am, and that I find all the more joy in these relationships, and the relationships flourish in that. So it puts me, instead of the role of a beggar, more of a role of a provider. And so, which is nice, because it doesn't, yeah, I don't feel, I'm just not, I think what it is that I stop barking up the wrong tree. I stop looking to somebody else to give me what I can find that support. I can be self-supporting. And in that I have freedom in place of the dependence that I would have if I needed to rely upon whoever that person might be in my life to be the source of that fulfillment, the source of that peace, the source of that strength. So it feels so much better to feel self-reliant and independent in place of feeling addicted and clinging and dependent. Because I've tasted both. So, thanks.
Thank you so much, Travis. I love the fact that you said that once we have, and this would be the advice to Daphne, is if you're in solitude, then we can work on our presence practice, or work on when you say be connected with the immutable, be like develop that presence power. And then when whatever flows through us and touches, yeah, you may not be touching your, actually, I wouldn't even say you may not be touching your daughter. Because in that presence, when you get into that meditative state and go experience at the psychic telepathic level, you can connect with your daughter. You don't have to connect with the most inaccurate, the mind telling us is, I need that person, I need Travis to be in front of me, only then is it having a connection with Travis. I need Louise. I mean, I have a very deep connection with Louise. I mean, we Louise and Gracie, we text each other or write messages, love you so much, all throughout the day, right? There's a deep connection, but I don't need Louise right in front of me being touching. That's the mind telling us that the daughter needs to be right in front of me. I don't need anybody near me, in front of me, being able to touch them to have a deep connection, is what you're saying, Travis. That once you're in that immutable, you can just have connection, and that is much more deeper a connection than any other connection that we would have had. This biological connection with a daughter is nothing. That depth of connection is what this cosmos needs with each other, right? So thank you. And you may find, like, when you're in that depth of connection that Travis is talking about, maybe there is a neighbor kid that is a girl that doesn't have a mother, and you're the mother for that neighbor kid. Planetary intelligence, once we have that depth of connection, we will be the fathers, we will be the mothers for kids that are not our kids, right? We will be mothering each other. We will be fathering each other. We will be the sister for each other. We would be the brother for each other, right? So that's what Travis is talking about. So beautiful. Phenomenal, Travis. Thank you so much for that. Caesar, did you want to say something to Daphne?
Sure, briefly. I think, yeah, you guys just touched on that extremely well. Beautifully put. Yeah, just acceptance is the way to go. Allow it to be as it is. Think only loving and peaceful thoughts when you think of your daughter. Don't question the why. And the advice that Poonam just gave there, and you know, piggybacking off of what Travis said, and as well as Lois, I think that is just phenomenal advice, and run with it for sure. That's what's important.
And you could be doing what Caesar does, which is taking care of animals, right?
Absolutely.
There are so many avenues. I don't have to have the love of my daughter or my son or my partner. I can have the love of anybody. Like the unity consciousness comes through, right? The whole cosmos is one with me. So no matter what it is, I'm going to take care of it. Whether it's a neighbor, whether it is a dog, a cat, a stray dog, whatever we may do, right? So volunteer at a stray, like if there's a facility that is taking care of animals, maybe volunteer there. Give of yourself, and you'll see in the giving.
Yeah, let's not get confused and like overplay it, because it is quote unquote our daughter or our son in that matter. Simply is what it is. But yeah, well said.
Thank you, Caesar. Kelly, I mean, that would be her soul contract, right? The daughter was supposed to offer that lesson to the mother, right? So thank you.
Yes, exactly. I've kind of been chatting with Daphne in the chat. That's why I've been watching my phone.
Sure.
But absolutely, the soul contract is really important to look at. And yeah, exactly. Caesar, what you said about how let's not overplay it about it being, you know, attaching it to the daughter, or well, not as a daughter or a son or whatever. understanding that people have, and Louise, you said it beautifully, having found myself with 2 young women in my life who are going through, you know, the process of realizing that I'm not their dad, but I am a male role model for them, and learning how to communicate, not as a parent, but as a friend, and someone who's just, you know, stepping back and letting them have their lives, have their feelings, and not project, and just support them and not assume or expect anything. You know, there's, you know, and even also not making my own happiness dependent on what they do or who they choose to be. You know, my identity was very, very solid before they came into my life, and, you know, the last couple of years, and it still is very solid and not dependent on them. And, you know, having spent a lot of time with my mom and dad, having worked with my mom, helping my dad recover from his car accident, and having a lot of conversations with my dad, and sort of having to re-educate him about who I am personally, has given me quite an interesting perspective on the whole parents thing and assumptions that parents make. And, you know, yeah, I mean, that's the big thing. Like, don't project. Do not project. Don't get caught up in needing something to fulfill your ego. Do not get caught up in expecting things to be a certain way. It's an ego trap. It's, you know, that's not about being present. That's about projecting outward and assuming that things are going to happen a certain way, and then being upset when they don't. And, you know, figure out how to build a space where you can communicate and where you can share and have open two-way, emotionally responsible communication. You know, and if there's anger there, you know, look at that. What's underneath the anger? What triggered the anger? Go back in the story. Go back in the story, and where did you both stop talking honestly and stop sharing a space of loving kindness? Go back and find that space and look at that, and maybe you both need to talk about that. So that's actually what I do with the kids in my life right now. It's like, okay, where did this start? What's going on? What's your mind doing? What's that look on your face? You know, I mean, it's I get playful with them and silly and whatnot, as I'm wont to do. You know, throw popcorn at them or whatever, and to get a reaction out of them, and also sort of like when they're deep in thought or angry, it's just like, okay, I get it that you're angry. I can feel that. I can see that. You know, that's okay. Let's, you know, take some space when you're not angry. Let's talk when you're not angry. So there's lots of options, lots of ways to look at this. But again, anytime any kind of expectation or assumption is present, it means that you're holding on to something and that you are trying to control an outcome. My 2 cents.
And the outcome that they're trying to control is my daughter should love me.
Oh yeah, I mean, we all have like an expectation or assumption of what love should look like. You know, we all assume that love is like this way. I mean, especially, you know, the you know, white picket fences and getting married and having kids, and that should make you happy and stuff like that. And, you know, that's honestly something that I've never actually felt myself personally, you know, except I, you know, I have a partner with kids, and it's suddenly, oh, okay, like I'm a parent now. I'm insta parent, insta dad, and I'm like, got to figure all this stuff out. But it's just, it's, you know, for me, it's the same type of conversation that I have with myself. It's like, what's going on? Why is this going on? Why are you feeling that? And yeah, it's all about how we want to have love a certain way, and we expect it and assume it should be a certain way. And when we get past that projection, when we get past that program of how we assume love should be or life should be, especially as parents, you know, it opens up a whole new vista, a whole new landscape of much more authentic spaces of loving kindness and real love, deeper love that is not based on anything other than heart space, anything other than being present, and anything, you know, that is about connection to source and just letting that flow out and not having any judgment.
That's
As
Daphne's.
hard as that is sometimes, as hard as that is, you know, but it's a process, it's a practice.
Thank you, Kelly. I love what Louise had to say, that is effortless grace in this present moment, always available. So Daphne, take it as effortless grace, moment to moment to moment, that it is always available, right? And when we trust that connection to source, when we are aligned with that inner beingness, the thorn on the side for Paul will fall away. That's the grace. So Jesus is saying, hi, Jack, so cute, so cute. So that's what Louise, in that story, Louise is saying that Jesus is giving the power back. So the power is within you, Daphne. The power for that thorn on your side to fall away is within you. And that lies in the presence. Practice, 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 practice. And it was an incredibly amazing day. Thank you for all the creative input through the questions that came through. John, Daphne, Cecile, and Nada, Nancy asked questions, and everyone here on the panel, y'all were incredible. So thank you so much for participating this week. And we'll meet again next week, and have a fantastic week until we meet on Wednesday. And many blessings. Have a good night, good day. Bye.